It started with a phone call. 1:47 a.m. Bitter Valley Sheriff's Office. A man's voice, shaking. "I can't keep quiet anymore. There's someone hanging in the barn. Been there. For years." Static filled the line. Then silence. Detective Samuel Briggs wrote the words down slowly. He didn't know yet that call would reopen a ghost file. Case 74-12. Nathan Cole. 3 winters earlier. Bitter Valley, Montana. Population, 6,000. 1 stoplight. Endless woods. Nathan Cole, 44. Veteran engineer, mechanic, father of 1. He'd survived roadside bombs in Iraq. But nothing felt as alive as a quiet morning in the cold woods. At 4:30 a.m., the alarm clock clicked once, then died. Nathan was already awake. He moved like a man who'd done this all his life. Boots, thermos, ammo box, rifle. He packed 2 foil-wrapped sandwiches, folded a map, kissed his wife's forehead. "Back before dinner," he whispered. Linda murmured something in her sleep. Grace, their 12-year-old daughter, shifted under the blanket. The old house creaked as he left. Snow crunched under his boots. Outside, the world was quiet enough to hear the air freezing. His red Chevy Silverado started on the 3rd try. A puff of gray exhaust drifted past the mailbox. Marked Cole, 1478 Bitter Road. Inside, the dashboard clock blinked 5:01 a.m. He drove east toward the timberline, headlights slicing through mist. The radio whispered static between gospel and weather reports. It was -12 outside. Perfect hunting weather. At 6:05, the security camera at a roadside diner caught him stopping for gas. He bought a coffee, a pack of gum, and filled up in cash. The cashier remembered his polite nod. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nathan Cole alive. By noon, the sun was blinding over the snowfields. By 7 p.m., the valley was black and still. Linda checked her watch again. No text. No call. Nathan always called. At 10:30, she called her neighbor, Steve Hanlon. "He's probably stuck somewhere. Give it an hour," Steve said. By midnight, she dialed the sheriff's office. The dispatcher told her to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. She didn't wait. The next morning, Bitter Valley Search and Rescue assembled behind the sheriff's building. 12 volunteers, 2 dogs, 1 helicopter on standby. Detective Briggs joined them quietly, heavy coat, gray stubble, eyes sharp but tired. The first sweep began at dawn. They followed tire marks east, past frozen creeks and pine ridges. 3 hours in, they found it. Nathan's Silverado, parked at a bend off Highway 78. Doors locked, windows clear of snow, no keys. Inside, his phone, cold and off, an empty thermos, map folded on the seat, a smear of dried blood on the floor mat no bigger than a coin. No signs of a struggle, no footprints, just silence, and wind moving through the trees. The dogs picked up a scent heading north. Nathan had gone on foot. For 2 miles, the trail was clean boot prints. Steady pace. Then, they stopped. The dogs circled, whining. Snow had melted, refrozen, wiped everything away. The line went cold right there. The team split into 3 directions. Radio chatter broke in and out. "Nothing on the west slope. Copy that." Checking the ridge. By dusk, fog rolled in. The helicopter combed the valley with floodlights, cutting through white emptiness. Still nothing. Back at the base, Linda sat beside the radio, hands clasped, lips pale. Grace leaned against her shoulder, holding Nathan's hunting knife. "Mom, he's okay, right?" Linda didn't answer. Day 2. A storm moved in from the north. Visibility dropped to 20 feet. The search continued anyway. Boots sank in half-frozen snow. Every crack in the forest sounded like a heartbeat. They found deer prints, old campfires, and tracks from snowmobiles, none of them Nathan's. By evening, a red scarf was found near a creek. It wasn't his. By the 7th day, the case was losing momentum. The press moved on. Volunteers went back to work. Detective Briggs stood alone beside the truck one last time. He opened the driver's door and stared inside. That single drop of dried blood still clung to the mat. "Not yours," he whispered. "For God's sake, not yours?" 2 weeks later, winter hit hard. -20. Snow buried the trails. Linda kept the porch light on every night. Grace stopped going to school. Briggs filed his report. No new evidence. Case open. Status: missing. He didn't close the file. Not really. Months passed. Spring thaw revealed nothing. No prints, no remains, no gear. Nathan Cole, husband, veteran, hunter, had vanished into a forest he knew better than anyone. Rumors spread in Bitter Valley. Some said he ran away. Some said he shot himself. Others whispered about the old Hines property, a farm deep in the hills, where dogs howled at night. Briggs noted the name, but it was too thin to follow. Still, he wrote it down. One evening, Linda visited his office. She placed a photo on his desk. Nathan, smiling faintly, holding Grace on his shoulders beside their Chevy. "He doesn't just disappear," she said. Briggs nodded. He'd heard it 100 times, but something in her tone, the quiet certainty, stayed with him. After she left, he stared at the case file again. A faded note from the search log caught his eye. Faint trail near mile marker 22. Smell of smoke. Dogs uneasy. He'd missed it the first time. Outside, snow began to fall again. Soft, soundless, the same way it fell the night Nathan drove into the woods. No one knew yet that, only a few miles away, beneath a roof of rotten boards, a man's body was hanging in the dark, waiting for the world to remember him. Winter swallowed Bitter Valley. Snow stacked on rooftops. The forest froze in silence. Detective Samuel Briggs kept Nathan Cole's file on his desk, top of the stack, edges curling from use. He didn't believe in vanishings, not without a reason. By January 2008, the search was officially suspended. Insufficient leads, the report said. To Linda Cole, those words felt like a verdict. She refused to hold a funeral. Every night, she left the porch light burning. Grace marked the days on the calendar with a black pen. The file stayed open, though. Briggs made sure of it. He drove back to the forest that spring. The same bend off Highway 78. The same red truck, now buried half in mud. He walked the trail again, 2 miles north, boots crunching over frozen soil. The trees whispered above him. Every echo felt like a heartbeat lost in the woods. He found the spot where the dogs had stopped years before. The ground was uneven, half thawed, half ice. Nothing moved except wind and crows. Briggs crouched, scratched at the dirt. Under the frost, something dark glinted metal. He brushed it off. A single, .22 casing, clean, unfired. Nathan's caliber. He slipped it into an evidence bag. Small, but enough to keep him going. Back in town, the rumors had grown wild. Some said Nathan ran off with another woman. Some said he was mauled by wolves. Others whispered that he'd stumbled into someone else's land. That last one caught Briggs' ear. He went through old property maps, tracing lines across the valley. One name appeared too often: Walter Hines, owner of 240 acres of fenced land, cattle, horses, and a reputation for keeping to himself. The locals called his place the Hollow. No one went near it after dark. Too many dogs, they said. Too many lights moving when there shouldn't be any. Briggs made a note but had no warrant, no reason to check. Not yet. By the second year, the Cole family tried to move on. Tried but failed. Linda took a job at the diner. Grace stopped hunting, stopped drawing, stopped talking about her father. Every birthday candle, every snowfall, brought him back like a ghost. On the 3rd anniversary, they held a memorial by the edge of the forest. Volunteers lit candles in the snow. Briggs stood at the back, coat zipped to the throat, eyes down. Linda approached him quietly. "He's out there, Sam," she said. "You just haven't looked in the right place." Briggs nodded once. Then he promised, "I'll keep looking." And he meant it. That winter hit harder than the rest. -20. Winds sharp enough to peel skin. Snow hid every clue, but it also preserved secrets. Sometimes, Briggs thought, the woods were less graveyard, more vault. He revisited the case log, every page, every photo, the single drop of blood from the truck's floor mat. He'd assumed it was human. It wasn't. A lab retest in 2009 confirmed it: canine DNA. From a terrier mix. Not Nathan's blood. Someone else's dog. That detail changed everything. Briggs pulled old reports on illegal dog fights across Montana. They happened in barns, cellars, old farms. Always cash only, always off the record. And one of the names attached? Leonard Pike. He'd been investigated 5 years earlier for cruelty charges, never convicted. Known associate of Walter Hines. Together they owned a few dozen dogs for breeding. Or so the paperwork said. No link to Nathan Cole. At least, not yet. Still, Briggs couldn't shake the feeling. He drove past the Hines property one night, just to see. Snow fell thick over the barbed wire fence. Through the drifting white, A faint glow pulsed behind the barn, like a lantern swinging. Then dogs barking. Deep, guttural, violent, the kind that didn't stop until someone made them. Briggs stayed in his car, engine off, listened. After 5 minutes, the barking stopped. A door slammed shut. Silence. He wrote it in his notebook. Hines property. Unconfirmed nocturnal activity. No visible occupants. Then he drove away. By 2010, the Cole case had become one of those cold files new recruits learned about during orientation. Classic wilderness vanish, they called it. But Briggs never stopped updating the log. Never stopped believing something human had happened here. He started reaching out to other counties. Old cases. Missing hunters. Disappearances near remote farms. 3 matched the pattern. 3 men. Different years. Same radius within 30 miles of Bitter Valley. 2 were never found. 1 was discovered months later, mauled by dogs. That one belonged to Pike's cousin. The line connected. Just not enough for court. One afternoon, Briggs visited Linda again. Grace was 16 now. Quiet, distant, eyes like her father's. Linda poured coffee, hands trembling. They said you gave up, she murmured. He looked at her. I didn't. She nodded. Then don't let him fade. Promise me. He promised again. And like before, he meant it. Late that night, alone in his office, Briggs replayed the first 911 call from years ago. Linda's voice breaking. He's not answering. Please, he's never late. The audio crackled, faded, ended. Then another file, a tip from a trucker. Saw a red pickup near mile marker 22. Door open, no one around. That was the same marker where the dogs lost the trail. Briggs zoomed in on the satellite photo. There, barely visible, a dirt path winding east into Hines's land. A path not marked on any map. He leaned back. Something clicked. All this time, Nathan might have walked right into someone's secret. He returned to the site once more. Spring 2010. The snow had melted, leaving the forest slick and gray. At mile marker 22 he parked and walked. The air smelled of rot and pine sap. 200 yards in, he found something new. A thin wire fence. Partly buried, rusted. Beyond it, a wooden post, scorched black. On it, a burn mark in the shape of a dog's head. A brand. A signature. He took photos, bagged samples, wrote down coordinates. This time, it wouldn't go cold. But without a witness, it was still just theory. No warrant, no body, no crime yet. The town had stopped asking. Even Grace stopped. Only Linda kept showing up every week, leaving fresh flowers by the edge of the woods. 4 winters, 4 birthdays missed. No closure. Briggs sat by his window one night. Rain turning to snow. He opened the coal file again. Beside it, his notebook. He underlined one phrase. Someone else's land. He didn't know how right he was. And then, as if summoned, the phone rang. A man's voice. Tired. Frightened. This is Evan Marsh. It said. I used to work for Hines. I heard something I shouldn't have. Briggs straightened up. What did you hear? A pause. Breathing. Then words that froze him in place. They said the hunter. He's still there. Hanging in the barn. The line went dead. Briggs stared at the phone. The snow outside had turned to a blizzard. Somewhere out there, a man's secret was buried under ice, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to dig it up. And Detective Samuel Briggs had just become that someone. Snow hammered the valley that night. The phone on Briggs' desk buzzed once, then twice. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was broken, whispering like someone afraid to be overheard. Detective Briggs? My name's Evan Marsh. I think I know where your hunter is. The line crackled. He heard a dog barking faintly in the background. Then the man spoke again, trembling. They said, he's still hanging there. In the barn. And the call cut out. Briggs sat motionless. Outside, the wind howled across the station roof. Inside, the room felt smaller, colder. He replayed the last few seconds in his head, still hanging there. Not buried. Not gone. Hanging. That single word turned 4 years of silence into urgency. By dawn, he had a name, an address, and a file pulled from the archives. Evan Marsh, 38. Transient laborer. Petty theft. Public disturbance. Nothing serious. Recently employed at Walter Hines's farm, 22 miles east. Same radius, same direction. The same cursed patch of land Nathan Cole had walked into. Briggs found Marsh in a diner off the old service road. The man was pale, eyes red-rimmed, hands trembling around a coffee mug. "I shouldn't have called," he muttered. "They'll know." Briggs leaned forward. "Who?" Marsh glanced at the window, lowered his voice. "Walter Hines and Pike. They talk like they own this valley. You don't cross them." He sipped, hands shaking. "Last week I was fixing the roof near the barn. Heard 'em talking inside." Hines said. He stopped, swallowed hard. "We need to move it before inspection." Briggs frowned. "Move what?" Marsh's eyes met his. "The man on the rope." The diner went quiet. Briggs didn't ask more. He knew enough. That night, Briggs filed for a search warrant. The request sat in the judge's queue for 2 days too long. He couldn't wait. He assembled a small team, 4 deputies, 1 forensic tech, and 2 cadaver dogs. They moved at dawn, unmarked SUVs rolling through fog. The valley was still half asleep when they reached the property gate. The Hines farm was bigger than he expected. Old wooden fences, sagging under snow. Cattle pens empty. No signs of life except the dogs. 6 of them, maybe 7, chained along the driveway. Muscular, scarred, restless. They barked in unison as the convoy approached. Briggs stepped out, coat pulled tight, badge visible. "Sheriff's Department. Walter Hines?" The farmhouse door opened slowly. Hines stood there, gray beard, flannel shirt, eyes that didn't blink enough. "What's this about?" he said flatly. "Routine inspection," Briggs replied. "Got a few questions." Hines studied the warrant, then shrugged. "Do what you need. Just don't spook the horses." There were no horses. Briggs noticed that. The team split up, 2 inside the house, 2 behind the stables. Briggs toward the barn. The structure sat low in a hollow, roof half-caved, doors padlocked with a heavy chain. The wood was old, blackened by weather and something else, smoke, maybe fire. One of the dogs sniffed the air and whimpered. Briggs nodded to his deputy. "Bolt cutter." The lock snapped. The door groaned open. A wave of stale air rolled out, thick, sour, wrong, rot, rust, and something sweet beneath it. Briggs clicked his flashlight. The beam sliced through the dark. At first, he saw only old hay bales, tools, scraps of wire. Then, deeper in the floor, changed color. Dark stains spread across the dirt. The tech crouched, touched a gloved finger to the ground. Blood, old. And then the dog stopped moving. It lifted its head, sniffed, and began to whine, staring upward. Briggs followed the gaze. The flashlight caught something near the rafters, a shape wrapped in tarp and rope, suspended like a forgotten shadow. He climbed the ladder slowly. Each rung creaked. The smell grew stronger, heavy, metallic, ancient. Up close, the tarp was stiff with time. He could see what looked like a boot sole jutting out from underneath. "Get the camera," he ordered quietly. The flash went off, one burst, bright white against the rot. The rope had cut deep into the beam. Whoever was up there had hung for years. Briggs exhaled, then said what everyone was thinking. "Bring it down." The firefighters arrived 10 minutes later with harnesses. They lowered the bundle carefully, inch by inch. When it touched the ground, the tarp split open along a seam. Inside lay bones wrapped in shreds of camouflage fabric. A metal belt buckle glinted. The wrists were bound with rusted wire. The skull fractured, temple cracked, signs of blunt trauma before death. Briggs crouched. He didn't need the ID to know. But they found one anyway, a laminated hunting license. Faded but readable. Name: Nathan Cole. The air in the barn turned silent. Even the dogs outside had stopped barking. Briggs didn't speak. He just stood there, watching the years collapse into a single, brutal truth. He motioned for the forensic tech. Everything bagged, every inch photographed. Nobody leaves until it's done. The process took hours. Blood samples, soil cores, rope fibers, every nail and chain documented. On a table near the back, they found other things. Dog collars, a broken metal plate shaped like a dog's head, and bedding slips dated November 2007. The same week Nathan disappeared. By nightfall, Hines was in handcuffs. He didn't resist, didn't say a word. Back at the station, under fluorescent light, his silence cracked only once. Briggs laid the photo of the tarp bundle on the table. "Who else was there, Walter?" Hines stared at the picture, eyes dull. Then, in a voice almost too low to hear, he said, "Leonard Pike." It was his show. Briggs didn't waste time. A warrant went out that night. By sunrise, Pike's black SUV was found outside a warehouse near the old industrial park. When the team breached, Pike was there sitting at a workbench, cleaning a knife. He didn't flinch when they cuffed him. "Thought you'd never come," he said, half smiling. Briggs showed him the photo. Pike's grin faded. "You found him, huh?" "Yeah," Briggs said. 4 years too late." Pike leaned back, eyes narrow. "You think you know the story, but you don't." Then he laughed once, sharp and humorless. "They all wanted to leave it hanging, just like that poor bastard. Said nobody'd ever find him. Guess they were wrong." He looked straight at Briggs. "Want the truth? Fine, but I'm not the only one who touched that rope." Hours later, Briggs walked out of the interrogation room, recorder in hand. What Pike had confessed would burn through every report, every news cycle. A story of greed, cruelty, and a man who walked into the wrong place at the wrong time. The cold case wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a crime deliberate, brutal, and buried under 4 winters of silence. That night, Briggs drove back to Bitter Valley. Snow fell again, soft and quiet. The forest looked peaceful, like it never kept secrets. He parked by the old trailhead. Nathan's truck was gone now, impounded long ago. Only the empty road remained. He stood there for a long time, listening. The same cold air, the same silence. But this time, he knew what lay beneath it, the truth. A truth that had been hanging in the dark, waiting for him to look up. The confession started slow. Pike sat across from Briggs, wrists cuffed, eyes hollow. The recorder's red light blinked between them. He exhaled smoke and said, "You want to know how it happened? Fine, but you won't like it." Then he began. It was November 18th, 2007. Cold, dry. The night Nathan Cole vanished. Pike said they were running another fight in the old barn, Heinz's barn. 20 people. Cash bets, whiskey bottles, and dogs in cages. They called it the Winter Run. 2 mastiffs. Blood on straw. Men cheering like it meant something. Pike was collecting bets when the door creaked open. Snow blew in. Everyone turned. A man in camouflage stood there, rifle slung over his shoulder. Nathan Cole. He froze at the sight. The cages, the men, the animals tearing each other apart. For a second, nobody moved. Then someone shouted, "Close that door." Nathan stammered. I'm sorry. I thought this was..." But the voice cut him off. "Grab him." 4 men dragged him inside. He dropped the rifle, tried to explain, said he was lost, just looking for the road. No one listened. Someone hit him once, a warning. He went down hard. Pike said he wanted to let him go, but Heinz didn't. Neither did the others. "He saw too much," Heinz said. "You let him walk. He takes us all down." The argument went on for hours. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, the air turned to panic. Nathan begged them to stop. He swore he wouldn't tell a soul. He said he had a daughter. That only made them angrier. Pike clenched his fists as he spoke. "He wasn't supposed to die," he muttered. "Just scare him. Make him promise to forget." They tied his hands with wire, beat him with bats until he couldn't stand. Blood soaked the hay. Then Heinz took the rope, looped it over the beam, said, "You want silence? This is silence." And the barn went quiet. Pike said the others helped lift him. Nathan's boots kicked once, twice, then nothing. No burial, no prayer, just rope and tarp. They hung him high, above the rafters, wrapped in plastic. "By spring, he'll be bones," Heinz said. "By next year no one will remember his name." They wiped the blood, burned the straw, and drove his truck back to the highway. Left it locked, phone on the seat, keys gone. It worked. The world looked in the wrong direction. When Briggs stopped the recorder, the room was silent. Pike leaned back, eyes red. "You got what you wanted," he said. "Now get me a deal." Briggs stood up. "No deal, just justice." He walked out. The hall smelled like coffee and rain. He'd heard confessions before, but never one that felt this cold. 2 more arrests came that night. Mason Trent and Dale Roach, Pike's assistants. Both tried to deny it at first, until they saw the photos, the tarp, the wire, the ID card. Then they broke. Trent admitted he'd helped move the truck. Roach confessed to holding the rope. Each detail matched Pike's story exactly. The circle was complete. The trial began in early 2011. People from 3 counties filled the courtroom. Reporters, locals, hunters who still remembered Nathan's face from the posters. Linda Cole sat in the front row, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Beside her, Grace, now 17, wore her father's dog tag around her neck. She didn't cry. She just stared at the men who'd taken everything from her. Prosecutor Ellen Hart read the charges. Kidnapping, conspiracy, first-degree murder. The list went on for nearly a minute. Pike sat still, jaw tight. Hines kept his head down. Trent and Roach shook uncontrollably. When the photos of the barn appeared on the screen, the rope, the beams, the skeleton people gasped. Grace closed her eyes. Briggs took the stand on day 4. He told the story from start to finish. From the first search to the final arrest. He didn't embellish. He didn't need to. Every pause in his testimony felt heavier than words. When asked why he never gave up, he said, "Because Linda Cole kept the porch light on." On the last day, the jury left for deliberation. 12 hours later, they came back. Guilty. All counts. Judge Carter read the sentences one by one. Leonard Pike, life without parole. Walter Hines, 40 years to life. Mason Trent and Dale Roach, 25 each, with no chance of early release. The courtroom was silent except for Grace's quiet whisper, "Thank you, Dad." Outside, the sky was gray. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps. Briggs walked past them without answering. He stopped when he saw Linda. She stepped forward, eyes wet but steady. "He came home," she said softly. He nodded. Yeah, he did. A week later, demolition crews tore down the Hines barn. Wood splintered. Dust rose like ghosts. The smell of old straw and rust drifted into the cold air. Linda stood on the ridge, coat pulled tight, Grace beside her. They didn't speak. When the last beam fell, Linda turned away. "Let it burn," she said. They did. Months passed. The valley thawed. The snow melted from the hills. At the edge of Bitter Valley, a new sign went up. Nathan Cole Memorial Field, dedicated to those who never came home. The community helped build it. Kids played baseball where the search teams once walked, and every spring, Grace placed flowers by the plate. Detective Briggs received a letter from the state police the following year, promotion to lieutenant. He left it unopened on his desk. Some victories didn't feel like promotions. He kept Nathan's file, the first photograph from the case, in a drawer marked resolved. But some nights, he'd pull it out, just to remind himself that silence always hides something. Linda and Grace rebuilt their lives quietly. Grace graduated, left town, started studying criminal law. She wants to help the ones still missing, Linda told Briggs over coffee one afternoon. He smiled faintly. She already has. Every November, the valley still remembers. Locals light candles along the ridge road, the same road Nathan took on his last morning. Some say they still see headlights there at dawn, a red truck idling for a moment, then fading into mist. Maybe it's imagination. Maybe not. Briggs never comments when asked. He just says, "Some men never leave the woods. They just find their way home another way." That winter, on the 4th anniversary of the trial, snow began falling early. The first flakes landed on the field sign, melting slow. Linda stood by the fence, hands in her pockets. She whispered to the wind, "The porch light's off now, Nate. You can rest." Behind her, the valley was silent again, but not empty. The light that once waited for a lost man now burned in every home that remembered him. Final narration, slow and reverent. In the forests of Bitter Valley, silence has a weight. Some vanish into it, some are buried by it. But truth always climbs its way out of the dark. Nathan Cole, veteran, husband, father, lost in the woods, and finally found.